Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up because I can't read. Yeah. If anyone has figured out the solution to the foggy glass mask problem, please talk to me after the service. Yes.
Here it is. Can I put this on?
No, they're going to present to you. Just 1 minute. Okay, so David is very eager to start. So what we're doing today, it's kind of a little strange because everything during these days of COVID is very strange. So we are actually going to be doing excerpts of the Shabbat morning service that David was supposed to have done back in March of 2020. That's the month that we all wish never was, but it was. And so we're not doing a full service today. What we are doing, as you see on the program, we will start with a presentation of David's talit, his prayer shawl, a kiddush cup, and a yad by his parents, Elisa and Michael Juros. Then he will say the talit blessing, and we'll go right into the Torah service. In addition to that, we'll then hear some words from David. He'll be teaching us some Torah. But the parsha he's going to be teaching us about is Parshat Vayikra, which was the parsha he was supposed to have read in March. Now, he did do some things back in March, whatever we were able to do on a limited basis during that extreme time of uncertainty. Yes, we still are in a time of uncertainty, but then it was really uncertain. So we will be hearing those words about Vayikra. Haftarah, we'll do some other prayers, prayer for the United States, for Israel, prayer for peace, Ashrei, and we'll continue then with some presentations to David, and Aleinu, and then Mourner's Kaddish, and Adon Olam. So in terms of should you wear a talit or not, or a head covering, it's kind of a strange question, only because everything about this today and this whole pandemic is strange, as I said. So we're not actually davening shacharit, so we're not wearing tefillin and we're not wearing talit, but you can wear a talit. And since there are people, since David is going to be presented with a talit and doesn't want to be the only one wearing one, if you have a talit, by all means, please do wear one. Okay, so we will begin with Elisa and Michael will come up to the bima and do their presentations.
It's hard to believe, for so many reasons, that we have finally reached this day. We are filled with pride and joy, and we are grateful that our friends and family could be here, whether in person or virtually, to share this simcha with us. David. Oh, David. Throughout the years, we have learned something unique and special about you. When it comes to trying something new or accomplishing a goal, you need to do it in your own time and in your own way and when you are ready. This is true when you were younger, and it continues to be true today. We have learned that if we are patient, you can accomplish your goals and thrive in the process. Now, we know that postponing your bar mitzvah was not your plan or under your control, but maybe we can take some comfort in the fact that it gave you a little more time. Throughout these many months during the pandemic, We have seen you grow and mature. We have learned that you are strong, resilient, compassionate, and able to take on new challenges as they come. We have also seen your creativity, intelligence, and sense of humor. We love you more than all the stars in the sky, and you make us incredibly proud to be your parents. Today, as you become a bar mitzvah, we have a few special gifts for you. You will notice that most of them share something in common. They were all made by the Israeli artist Emmanuel, or most of them. And they all have a Jerusalem landscape design. If you didn't know, David has been blessed to go to Israel 6 times already in his short life. And Israel holds a very special place in his heart. Every time we go to Israel as a family, we take home a new piece of Judaica to add to our Emmanuel collection. Now we can add these pieces as well, if you will allow us to. We hope that when you use them or look at them, they will remind you of this special day, as well as the many wonderful times we have spent together in Israel as a family. Now we're gonna switch.
Okay. So, first, there's your talit. It's over there? Yes, you can hear it. Which is actually a gift from your Saba and Savta, and when you wear it, may you always feel surrounded by their love. May you also feel the presence of God and your Jewish ancestors and feel proud to be part of this community. Next,
What do we have?
I'm gonna do your banner. Next, we have a Kiddush cup. May it always remind you of our sweet and joyous Shabbatot, filled with l'chaim and singing and dancing and your favorite Shabbat treats. Next, we have a yad that you can use today as you read from the Torah. When you read from this special Torah today, we hope that you feel the presence of the Jewish people who read from it in Czechoslovakia, as well as the chain of tradition of your family members who have read from it in New Jersey. And finally, I have this. Finally, something to pass down from generation to generation, the Dor Vadora. We wanted to give you the tefillin that I received from Zeta and Mimam when I became a bar mitzvah. When you use them, I hope you'll remember their hugs and kisses and how much they loved you and how proud they'd be of you today on this special day. You're using those things, yeah? They, yeah.
look?
You look marvelous. Okay, let's turn now in our Sidurim. We're using Sidur Lev Shalem, and we are turning to page 168.
Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai, Sein k'ma'asecha, Malchutecha Malchut kol ha'olamim,
Umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach,
Adonai Imloch, Le'olam, Adonai Oz Le'amo Yiten,
Adonai Yehovah,
et Akmo Bashalom, Rachamim, Tir Rabinson, Etzion, Kivnei Yerushalayim, Kivecha levavatachnu, Melech el Ram ben Yisa,
Adon Olamim. Please rise as the ark is open. To page 171, and we're not actually taking any of these Sefer Torah out of the ark. We have one that I will speak about a little bit later. The Juros Mike in particular mentioned a little bit about it, and I'll elaborate as well. It's a very, very special Torah for many reasons to this family and to the Jewish community.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol, Adonai Kadosh Shemo. v'yishtachavu, v'yishtachavu, v'rachadoshu, Ramamu, Radonai Eloheinu, v'yishtachavu, v'yishtachavu, v'rachadoshu, Kikados, Adonai Eloheinu.
If you can all be seated, David, if you can go backside and sit in my chair for a moment. Okay, so before David is called up to the Torah, let me tell you where we're reading, what we're reading. So you should take out the Eitz Chaim Chumash, which is the bigger of the two red books that you have in front of you. And we're starting to read on page 589. Leviticus, Vayikra, chapter 1, verse 10. Okay, so David, you go over there. You can take off your mask after I step on. Wait, it's like it's Okay, so David actually prepared 4 aliyot. He's going to be reading 3 of them consecutively. And then we're going to skip a little. He's going to do his 4th, and then he'll do his blessing after the 4th one. Okay, so you find your place.
Okay, let me just find it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just wrap this chamber on my hand.
Yeah. Okay, and then you start with your bracha.
So let me just pull this out. Okay, so I'm going to do the before book.
The blessing first before.
Okay.
You take your talit and touch it to the Torah. Okay.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
find the place.
V'iminatzon korbanah.
Viminatson Kabanah.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Viminatson Kabanah min haksavim o min harzim le'olah zachar tamim yafridenu v'shachatata al gerech hamizbeach sachana lifnei Adonai v'zarku b'nei Aaron HaKohanim etamot al mizbeach saviv v'nitach otav l'tachav v'et rosho v'et kedro v'yarach v'henatam al hetzir asher al ha'esh asher al mizbeach v'akerev ha'kreim yirchaz b'mayim v'kriv v'kohen et achol v'tir ha'mizbecha Olahu Yishrei V'rachichalach L'Adonai. V'min ha'ov Olah Kavanah L'Adonai V'kriv min ha'tarim of V'nei ha'ana et kavanah V'kriv ha'kohen al ha'mizbeach Malach et rosho v'hitir ha'mizbeach v'nitzah adama al ki'ir ha'mizbeach v'yasir et murata v'notata v'shlichata et zal mizbeach k'dma al makom adashen v'shisa al tevish nacha lo yavdil v'kriv ata kohen ha'mizbeach malach et rosho v'hitir Ha'etzim asher al ha'esh Ha'etzim asher al ha'esh Allahu Yishrei V'rachichalach L'Adonai. hakriv, Kakatorim ladonai, aviv, Halolai va'esh geresh karmel hakriv, et minchat begorecha, venatata leha shemen, v'samta leha levona, mincha hi, v'tira gohen et azkarata, migersha mishamna al kol levanata, shel Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah demet v'hayeh olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Okay, I have some brachot, some blessings for David and for his parents. So you'd like to come up again? Mishaberach Avotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Yevarech, et Barak Chaim ben Moshe Shlomo ve'Elisheva Penina, שהגיע למצוות ועלה לכבוד המקום ולכבוד התורה. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמרהו ויחייהו ויחנך ליבו להיות שלם עם אדוני אלוהיו, להגות בתורתו, ללכת בדרכיו ולשמור מצוותיו, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיו. יהי רצון שיזכו הוריו לגדלו לתורה, לחוקה ולמעשים טובים, וימצא חן ושכל טוב בעיני אלוהים בידם, ונאמר Amen. May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, bless David, Gabriel Juros, Barak Chaim, son of Moshe Shlomo, and Elisheva Penina, who has been called to the Torah today to celebrate reaching the age of responsibility for the mitzvot of Jewish tradition, with respect for God, respect for the Torah. May the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be God, protect and sustain David, helping him to be wholehearted in his faith, to study Torah, and to fulfill mitzvot, and to walk in God's ways. May his parents, Elisa and Michael, rear him to maturity, guiding him to a love of Torah, to the chuppah one day, and to a life of good deeds. May he find favor before God and the community, and let us say, I'd like to extend that bracha to all the family members who are here today. So if you are related to this dapper young gentleman, please rise at your seats and I will extend the blessing to you. Mishaberach Avotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Yevarech, et kol b'nei mishpachat habachor bar hamitzvah, Barak Chaim ben Moshe Shlomo ve'Elisheva Penina. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yichazkem v'yamtzem v'yivarchem b'chesed u'v'shalom v'nomar Amen. May God, who blessed our ancestors Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, bless the family of David Gabriel Juros, who has reached the age of responsibility for fulfilling the mitzvot. May the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be God, give all of them strength and bless them with loving kindness and with peace. May Mike and Elisa always be proud of David for who he is and for his unique capabilities and accomplishments. Hashem, please guide Mike and Elisa, enabling them to recognize their son's new responsibilities among the Jewish people. May they encourage David to continue his Jewish education by studying with me at Hebrew High School on Thursday evenings, and may they encourage him to live a life of Torah and mitzvot. Hashem, we thank you for the strength that you have granted all of the members of the Juros and Bergenfeld families to reach this milestone in David's religious life. And we pause to remember David's grandparents, Mike's parents, who could not be with us in person, but are very much with us in spirit today. David, may you and your family find favor before God and the community, and let us say, Amen. Okay, now, we're ready for the next step here, which is Hagba, Galila, and the HaTorah. So, Adi, Ya'amod, Ba'ali, Hechazan, Avraham, Ben Aharon, Hamagbiah. You may be seated. Change places.
Okay.
Please give David your complete attention as he teaches us some words of Torah. And I'm going to step down so you can take off your mask.
Okay, speech.
It's your speech, yeah?
Speech time. Okay, let me just pull up a little stool. Okay. Boker Tov, good morning. As you know, my original Torah portion that I was scheduled to chant and speak, and oh, yeah. Whew. Breath of fresh air. Whew. Okay, so as you know, my original Torah portion that I was scheduled to chant and speak on March 28th is Parshat Vayikra, which is the first parsha in Sefer Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. Even though it's been over 7 months since then, I'm still going to chant the same parsha and speak about it today. In this parsha, the Torah describes 5 different types of sacrifices that Bnei Israel were supposed to offer to God in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, during their years of wandering in the wilderness. In later years, after the people settled in the land of Israel, these same sacrifices would be offered in the Beit HaMikdash, or the temple. The sacrifices described in Parshat Vayikra include guilt offerings, sin offerings, burnt offerings, and grain offerings. The whole concept of offering sacrifices may be a bit difficult for modern people to understand, because today, this might be considered cruelty towards animals, and many people don't feel that God doesn't need our sacrifices. One commentary to help us understand sacrifices is given by the Rambam, a 12th century rabbi who's also known as Maimonides. In Rambam's book, A Guide to the Perplexed, he writes that the Israelites were very immersed in the tradition of praying to something physical. Sacrifices, in a way, were a substitute for praying to idols. It was a way for them to slowly ease out of the concept that they couldn't pray to idols anymore. This is how they could still physically connect to God. According to a commentary in the Eitz Chaim Chumash on page 586, after the Israelites prayed to the golden calf that Aaron made from melting the Israelites' jewelry, God noticed that it wouldn't be so easy for the Jews to just completely stop praying to idols. God realized that it would be difficult for the people to deal with a totally abstract notion of God. Based on this, God created the sacrificial system. Rabbi Malik taught me that the idea that God was intangible was a difficult concept for our ancestors to grasp. As the sin of the golden calf indicated, the people needed the aid of tangible symbols in order to serve God. Offering sacrifices provided the people with a very concrete and physical way to express themselves spiritually. In Hebrew, the word for sacrifice, or sacrificial offering, is korban. The plural is korbanot. The root of this Hebrew word consists of 3 Hebrew letters, kuf, resh, and vet. This is the same root found in the noun krovi, which means relatives, and in the adjective karov, which means close. For our ancestors, Bnei Israel, offering sacrifices was a way for them to feel closer to God. After the temple was destroyed in 70 CE by the Romans, other concrete physical actions replaced the offering of sacrifices in Judaism. For example, prayers, rituals, and acts of loving kindness. These are the things that the Jewish people do to this day as a way to feel closer to God. For me, Jewish rituals are a way to connect to God as well as to the Jewish community. In the summer of 2019, when I attended 6 Point SciTech Academy, a Jewish science and technology camp, there were many ways in which I connected to God and to the Jewish community. On Shabbat, we would all dress in white shirts and beige khaki pants. We'd have fancy, delicious Shabbat dinners in the dining hall, and we would hold Shabbat song sessions for each age group. We prayed during our Shabbat services by singing and dancing. The prayers were projected onto a big screen, and we didn't have to keep track of the page numbers. I could get a better understanding of the prayers because of those images. Afterward, we would go to the main hall and get a good workout and have a fun time while Israeli dancing. This, I found, was a much more joyful and more spiritual way to connect to God, rather than sitting in a synagogue and reading a book. Not that I have anything against books, my entire Bar Mitzvah project is about books. For me, Jewish rituals are a way to connect to God, as well as to the Jewish community. Now that I've become a Bar Mitzvah, I know that I'm responsible for participating in Shabbat and holiday services. I'm looking forward to the day when services are held in person at Temple Beth Ahm again on a more regular basis after the pandemic. We'll also continue to observe Shabbat and the holidays at home. Next year, I also plan to attend Hebrew High School and become active in USY. I'll also participate in minions when I'm needed. I also plan to continue doing mitzvot in the community that benefit other people, such as collecting food for the hungry, donating clothes, toys, and books, and visiting and caring for the sick and the elderly. For my Bar Mitzvah project, I decided to collect books and donate them to the Bridge of Books Foundation. The organization's mission is to provide an ongoing source of books to underserved children throughout New Jersey in order to support the development of literacy skills and encourage a love of reading. Then they distribute the books to agencies, schools, New Jersey youth groups, and community outreach events. I started by doing a book drive for 1 month. After, I had to count the books and sort them by appropriate age groups. In the end, I ended up with 1,400 books. I also spent a day at the headquarters of the Bridge of Books Foundation. I sorted even more books, and then made boxes to put those books into. I chose this bar mitzvah project because I love reading. It's a way for me to relieve stress and a way to escape from the real world. It's very entertaining to enter the world of the characters and imagine what their lives are like. I'm hoping that my book collection will bring a love of reading to many other children. The success of my accomplishments in preparing for my bar mitzvah service could only have happened with the help of many people. Thank you to Mora Ann and all of the teachers and aides at Temple Beth Ahm Religious School for teaching me Hebrew, Torah, Jewish values, holidays, and rituals. Thank you to Rabbi Malik for supporting me and helping me understand my Torah portion and guiding me through this experience. Thank you to my bar mitzvah tutor, Josh Feldstein, for teaching me my Torah readings and the Haftorah, and for being so patient and encouraging. Thank you, Cantor Adi, for sharing your musical talents and for calling me up to the Torah today as a bar mitzvah. Thank you to all of my family and friends who have traveled near and far to celebrate this special day with me. Most of all, thank you to my parents for helping me emotionally during this challenging time. Todah Rabbah. Please follow along as I chant my Haftarah on page 606 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'mi'im tovim v'ratzah v'divreihem ha'nemarim emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher Torah u'Moshe abdo b'Yisrael amo v'yeh hamed v'tzedek. Amzu yatzarti li tehilati yisafer v'loati karata Yaakov yagata b'Yisrael v'leveta li se'elotecha zvachecha v'kivatani lo eticha b'mincha v'lo habaticha bilvana lo kanisa v'kesed kanei v'yosli v'yava. Wait a second. Yeah, okay. Zu yatzarti li tehilati yisaperu v'loati karata Yaakov yagata b'Yisrael v'leveta li se'elotecha zvachecha v'kivatani lo eticha b'mincha v'lo haveticha b'bano lo kanisa li v'kesed karnei v'cheled zvachecha lo hibitani v'vatani v'chatotecha v'vatani v'bonotecha Anochi hu v'cher peshe'echa v'ma'ani v'chatotecha lo eskor Kikireini Yishatara Yahad Saperata Lamantitza Avicha Harishan Hata Mitzacha Koshuvi Bachalel Sare Kodesh Vietnam Vacheram Yaakov Yisrael Lugidufi Vietnam Vachamala Kavadi Yisrael Vachartivo Ki Mayim Otsame Asli בחטיבה. אמר אדוני אלוהיך, יצאך מבטן עזרך, ותטמע עבדי יעקב. יצאון בחטיבה, כי את המים על טמא, ועוזבים על יבשה. יצא עבודה לאדוני, לשם ישראל יחנך. Kasir kavim al yevlemoim, zeh yamar ladanai ami, v'zeh yirkav shem Yaakov, v'zeh yada ladanai, v'shem Yisrael yechaneh, Omar Adonai melech Yisrael, v'kol Adonai tzevaot, Ani Rishon v'ani Aharon, Madai ein Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sor ha'olamim, tzadik b'kol doro, el hane'eman ha'omer v'yosef, ha'medaber ha'mekayem, she'kol dovarav v'mitzvah tzedek. Ne'eman atah hu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ne'emarim devarecha, v'davarecha mibarecha, achal yoshuv rekam, ki el-melech ne'eman v'rachamon atah, Baruch atah Adonai, el hane'eman b'kol doro. V'ahem al Tzion k'hi beit chayenu, v'aguvat nefesh toshia b'mehera b'yameinu. Baruch atah Adonai, v'sachmei Tzion v'lanecha.
Amen.
Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu, v'yahu hanavi avdecha, v'malchut beit David mishichecha, v'nayavo ligel libenu. Akasov yeshev zar, v'lo t'marchimim et kavodo, v'tishem p'shar mishpat alo, v'noch v'yava v'yolam v'yahed. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen David.
Amen.
Melech Torah v'yal avodah, v'al neviim v'yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, l'bishach ligacha, l'chavad u'letifat. Ala kol Adonai Eloheinu, v'anachnu modim ra, u'levarachim otah, yishtabach shemcha b'chit kol chai, tamid le'olam v'yahed. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha'shabbat.
Amen.
Race spring check.
Mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel on page 177. If you would like to stand, this is up to you. Prayer for the United States, prayer for Israel, prayer for peace. The prayer for the United States in English on page 177. And we'll all do this together. Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessing upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials, who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. Adonai, God whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say, Amen. Page 178, please join me in Hebrew, then in English, a prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu Shabashamayim, Sur Yisrael v'goalo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Gulatenu. Hagen aleha be'evrat chasdecha, ufros aleha sukat shalomecha, ushlach orchav amitcha l'rasheha sareha v'yoatzeha, v'takenem be'etza tova mi'lefanecha. Chazek et yedei miginei eretz kodshenu, v'hanchilem Eloheinu Yeshua, ve'ateret nitzachon te'aterem, v'natata shalom ba'aretz, v'simchat olam liyoshveha, v'nomar, Amen. Avinu Shabashamayim, stronghold and redeemer of the people Israel. Bless the state of Israel, the beginning of our redemption. Shield it with your love, spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them, crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And let us say, Amen. May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world. Your turn. For all who live on earth shall realize we have not come into being to hate or to destroy. We have come into being to praise, to labor, and to love. Fulfill the promise conveyed in Scripture. I will bring peace to the land, and you shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you. Let justice and righteousness flow like a mighty stream. Let God's peace fill the earth as the waters fill the sea. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. Okay, you may be seated. David will lead us in Ashrei on page 181. And David led us in Ashrei yesterday from this very room, but from his seat. Now you get to do it on the bima.
Ashrei Ashrei Betecha Ojehalu Hasela.
Ashrei Shadonai Eloha.
Lale David Mikalo HaMelech Barakashim Halelam Ba'ed.
B'chol yom avarchecha Baruch Leolam Va'ed.
Gadol Adonai Kol Ameo Dolito Doin Heker.
Further Shabbat Masecha Ugvorotecha Yagidu.
Hadar Kevodo Decha V'divrei Neflotecha Asicha.
Ve'ezuz V'atecha Yomeru Ugedulotcha Saprena.
Zecharav Tufiabi V'tzitchacha Yaranenu.
Chanun V'rachum Adonai Baruch Apayim Ugdol Chased.
Tov Adonai Lachol V'chamava Kol Masa.
Yoducha Adonai Kol Ma'asecha V'chasidecha Yivarchucha.
Kevod Machuka Yomeru Uv'lecha Yedaberu.
V'hodir L'nei Adam Gvurota.
Machuka Machut Kol Amim U'Mavshetacha B'chol Dor V'ador. Einei Kol HaYesad Beru V'matam L'Tochem L'Cham Beito. Sa'adik Adonai B'chol Toracha V'Sid B'chol Masaha.
קרוב אדוני לכל קרב, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
ברצון ויעשה, ואת קרקם וישמע ויושיעם.
שומע אדוני כל אוהביו, ואת כל רשעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ירפי, לברך כל בשער שקר של עולם ועד.
ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. Okay, please rise. We are going to symbolically put the Torah scroll back in the ark. We'll sing Eitz Chaim, page 184.
It's
Okay, you can be seated, and I'm going to ask David to join his parents and grandparents. Take a little breather from the bima, and you've heard of dueling banjos. This is going to be dueling divrei Torah. David, you'll be back here again for Aleinu. Okay? All good. So before I address words specifically to David, some words about the Parsha. Not this week's Parsha, but that week's Parsha. The Torah portion we actually read in Shul yesterday was Parashat Chayei Sarah, and this upcoming week's Torah portion is Parshat Toldot. Both of these parshiot are in the first book of the Torah, the book of Bereshit, which we started just after Simchat Torah. But as David pointed out to you, he prepared to read and speak about that parsha that was never actually read in Shul on March 28th, 2020, because of the corona pandemic. So just as David spoke about Parshat Vayikra, so will I. And then I will present him with some gifts. David and his parents attended some of the in-person services that we had in the month of Tishrei here at Temple Beth Ahm. We had them outdoors. We had for the high holidays and for Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. We were outside in a tent. And when we were in the tent, I was actually thinking about David and your comments about camp, about the six points high-tech camp, and how much you love davening outdoors and the whole camp experience. So we tried to bring a pandemic to you so we could create a camp experience for you to have on the high holidays. Well, at one of the high holiday services, I introduced Yizkor by talking about media bias and the ethical responsibilities of journalists. A few years ago, I actually posed a question to my Hebrew high school students. I asked, when a reporter omits some facts of a news story, thereby misrepresenting the truth, is that akin to lying or not? Is this a sin of omission? Well, this idea of a sin of omission, it's not only committed in the field of journalism, and it's not only an issue that pertains to the realm of everyday ethical speech, it is also an issue that can come up in the sphere of religion. and specifically within the Jewish religion. So an example of a common sin of omission that is made with regards to Judaism. Rabbi, I have no need to join a shul, and I have no need to practice my religion at home, but I've always had a warm and fuzzy feeling for Judaism in my heart. Or another, most people can't tell I'm Jewish by what I do and what I don't do, because I'm not that religious. But that doesn't mean anything, because deep down I have an emotional connection to Judaism. Deep down in my heart, I'm Jewish. So over and over again, in countless variations, Jews say these words to rabbis and other leaders in the Jewish community around the world. This brand of Judaism that consists only of warm, fuzzy feelings in the heart does claim the majority of American Jews. But this brand of Judaism omits something. It omits some of the most germane aspects of the Jewish experience. Of course, I have absolutely nothing against warm, fuzzy feelings. They're great, and they are and should be an important component of Jewish identification and faith. And if having services outdoors in a tent is what does it, I'm all for it. Not so much in 20-degree weather. But warm feelings alone are not enough. Without tangible and concrete rituals to accompany them, warm feelings don't have staying power. Warm feelings are incapable of transmitting Judaism from one generation to the next. Parshat Vayikra, and in fact most of the book of Vayikra, emphasizes the importance of concrete, tangible signs and behaviors. David spoke about this. In ancient times, Bnei Israel, the Israelites, offered korbanot. David taught us earlier this can be translated as sacrifices or sacrificial offerings. And one of those korbanot was the korban olah, a voluntary burnt offering given by a person who had a specific need that he wanted to bring to God's attention. So for this attention-getting sacrifice, a person could bring anything from a pigeon to a cow. Someone who was more wealthy might be able to afford to sacrifice, to offer a cow barbecue, essentially, is what the korban system was like. Someone who was more wealthy could afford that, but someone who was of more modest means might only be able to afford to offer a sacrifice that is less expensive, like a pigeon. And according to a commentary on Parshat Vayikra in the Babylonian Talmud, that's okay. In a statement that has often been misinterpreted or taken out of context, the Talmud teaches that it doesn't matter to God whether one brings a lot or a little, as long as one's heart is directed towards heaven. So on the surface, that line in the Talmud seems to justify doing the bare minimum. After all, if doing a little or doing a lot both count the same, why bother doing a lot? This teaching from the Talmud also seems to place a higher importance on the kavanah, on the intention, than on the deed itself. So does this mean that if a person has the right feelings in his heart, that there may be no need for action at all? And there are many who would answer yes to this question. And those who choose to omit some of these essential aspects of Judaism may turn to this section of the Talmud for justification of a religion stripped of rituals. But to have such a view is to be guilty of a sin of omission. And such a view misreads both the Talmud and Judaism. Perhaps it might be easier to understand the necessity of actions in the realm of religious ethical behavior than in the realm of religious ritual behavior. Most would agree that, yes, there is a difference between giving 1% of your income to tzedakah and giving 10% of your income to tzedakah. And there's a big difference between giving 10% versus 30%. Regardless of your intentions, it's better to give as much as you can from what you can afford. But what about the realm of ritual, of prayer, Shabbat, Kashrut, other mitzvot that are part of traditional Jewish living? Is a little as good as a lot? In some ways, yes. In many ways, if the goal of Judaism is simply the feelings of one individual at one point in time, of course, an individual can feel really good about being Jewish without observing a lot. But what about the need to instill Jewish values so that they truly become part of you as an individual? And what about the ability to improve not only yourself, but your family and your community by reaching beyond your own personal needs to a higher level? So when the Talmud says that the heart must be directed towards heaven, perhaps what the statement means is that our hearts must be willing to make God's will our will. When we allow God's agenda of Kedusha, of holiness and righteousness, tzedek, to replace our heart's selfish whims, fads, and lusts, we are essentially offering a sacrifice. We're offering our very core to God as a gift. So no, it doesn't really matter if you serve 3 main courses or just one on Shabbat. It doesn't matter if you give $1 million to tzedakah or $180, but you do try and should try to give as much tzedakah as you can. And with the Shabbat dinners, yes, whether or not you have 1 course or 3 after the pandemic, God willing, you should try to have these Shabbat dinners, including as many people as you can. Not at one time, perhaps 1 person a week, every week with your family or friends. And hopefully that will come soon. And it doesn't matter if you have 2 sets of fancy china, but try to have some semblance of a kosher kitchen. It's possible. The value of a sacrifice is not its size, but without some sacrifice, without some concrete, tangible actions to go along with the warm, fuzzy feelings about Judaism, there may be no values and no transmission of these values from generation to generation, midor ledor. David, being as bright and perceptive as you are, and being someone who really has a growth mindset, I think that you understand about the importance of actions and how our behaviors can help concretize what's inside, our inner thoughts, our inner feelings. It wasn't enough, David, for you to just feel in your heart or to think in your mind, boy, wouldn't it be nice if people loved reading as much as I do? You knew that if you were going to truly actualize the goal of spreading your love of reading to others, you had to actually do something about it, something concrete. And that's what you did for your bar mitzvah project. Collecting, organizing, donating books. If you missed the number, 1,400, 1,400 plus books to the Bridges of Books Foundation. David, you also learned about the importance of concrete actions in religious school when you were given a checklist by Mora Ann of 3 different categories of mitzvot: Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. Torah, prayer, and acts of loving kindness. You learned that it wasn't sufficient to just learn about Torah or about prayer or to learn about deeds of loving kindness, that you actually had to do these mitzvot to fully experience and contribute what Judaism requires of us. And David, another lesson that you undoubtedly learned in the Temple Beth Ahm religious school is that becoming a bar mitzvah should not mark the end of your Jewish learning and your doing of mitzvot at home or at shul. Becoming a bar mitzvah is a milestone in your Jewish journey that should last a lifetime. So to serve as a reminder of your commitment to a lifetime of Jewish learning and mitzvot, I'd like to present you with a gift from the Temple Beth Ahm Men's Club. It's an Eitz Chaim Chumash. You could hang out there. Just keep eating those candies. There's no nutritional value in them whatsoever, but enjoy them. Before I say something about the Post-its, I do want to say the inside, the original book plate is still in here because we were hopeful in March that this was going to happen, right? Every week we checked in, every few days we were checking in, what are we going to do? Are we going to do it in March? Postpone until when? So we do have the original book plate here that says, presented by Temple Beth Ahm Men's Club to David Juros, Mazel Tov on becoming a bar mitzvah. It has Parshat Vayikra, 3rd of Nisan, 5780, March 28th, 2020. And then I put in this morning, take 2, November 15th, 2020, 28th of Cheshvan, Tafshin Fei Aleph, 28th of Cheshvan, 5781, with your name on it. So I, of course, have marked post-its from the part of the Torah that you read from Parshat Vayikra, as well as the Haftorah from the book of Yeshayahu from Isaiah. But I have other post-its here as well. I'm not sure if you can see. This is the same book we use today, but a mini version of it. And in fact, we are using this in Hebrew High School. And so what I've marked here are various post-its that correspond to the different aspects of your name. So your middle name, I'll start with, in Hebrew, is Chaim. And I'm starting with the middle name because the name of this book is Eitz Chaim. It's not called, if you go to any synagogue and you want to look at a copy of the Bible, they're not all going to be called Eitz Chaim. This is a particular edition. It so happens that the editor of this edition is Chaim Potak, so his English and Hebrew name was Chaim. But it's not just called Eitz Chaim because of Chaim Potak, it's called Eitz Chaim because the Torah is a tree of life. We sang that when we opened up the ark earlier, when we were singing Eitz Chaim Hi L'Machazikim Ba. It is a tree of life to those that hold fast to it. So the first post-it that I have marked here is the original time in the Torah, the first time, the only time, that this expression, Eitz Chaim, is used. And it's not used with reference to Torah, it's used with reference specifically to a tree of life. Okay, a tree of life. So Chai means live, Chaim is life. Eitz Chaim, it only appears in Parshat Bereshit. It's the first portion of the Torah. Remember Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava? There were 2 trees that grew in the center of the Garden of Eden, and one of those trees was the Eitz Hadat, the tree of knowledge, and the other was the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life. And the Torah itself is compared to a tree of life because it provides sustenance. And it's every bit as essential to our lives as Jews as the physical necessities of food, shelter, and clothing. Your first name in Hebrew is Barak. But before I go to Barak, I also want to say something else about Chaim. You aren't just given the name Chaim because it's the name of this book, because this book didn't exist, or maybe it did when you were born, but this is not the reason. You aren't given the name Chaim just because of the tree of life that's in the Garden of Eden. You were given the Hebrew name in memory of your maternal great-grandfather, Herman Chaim Bergenfeld, and your maternal great-great-grandfather, your grandmother Mimi's grandfather, Heinrich Chaim Gladstein. So when you go to this post-it that says Chaim, you get to bring all of those generations together. The generations from way back when, the generations of your grandparents and great-great-grandparents, and your own generation. So now your first name in Hebrew is Barak. So until Barack Obama was elected president of the United States, no one heard of this name probably, it wasn't such a common name. Barak means lightning. Barak is a Hebrew name, it's a biblical name, and you were given this Hebrew name in memory of your paternal grandfather's cousin, Bernice Bunny Schutzbank, Mike's dad's cousin. There's one biblical hero whose name was Barak, but his name and his story don't appear in the 5 books of the Torah. They appear in the later section of the Tanakh, of the Hebrew Bible, known as Nevi'im, and specifically in the book of Shoftim, in Judges. And that's what I have marked here. Barak was kind of the co-star in the story with Deborah. Deborah, the chieftain, the judge. Barak ben Avinoam was the army officer, the chieftain. He was a military commander during the days of the chieftain Deborah. So you'll find his name here marked in a Haftorah. It's the Haftorah for Parshat B'Shalach. Now your first name in English is a very common name. You are not a common person. David, you were named after your uncle Donald Juros, after Mike's brother. You also have a biblical namesake, and the biblical namesake is King David, the second king of the united monarchy of Israel and Judah, who was preceded by King Saul, followed by his son, King Solomon. And the entire book of Tehillim, the book of Psalms, is attributed to him. And we don't read that book of Tehillim on any Shabbat or on any holiday, but there are many Psalms interspersed throughout our prayer service and throughout our Siddur. But King David does appear in this book. I found it posted. He appears in the books of Shmuel, Shmuel Aleph and Bet, and the very beginning of the book of Malachim, the book of Kings. And there are a few Haftorahs in the Etz Chaim in which David is featured, including the one that is read for Machar Chodesh. When you have Shabbat, and then the next day is Rosh Chodesh, there's a special Haftorah that features King David. Now for your fourth name, because we've got 2 English names, 2 Hebrew names, Gabriel is a very Jewish name, but it's not in this book. So no posted for this, just a story. So Gabriel is a name that means strength of God. Gevurah is strength. Gibor is the hero. El, God. So Gibor means hero, and a hero, as you know, can take on many different forms. You can be strong, have Gevurah in a physical sense, like a professional weightlifter, or a taekwondo, I don't know what you call it, expert? Something. Someone who's very good at taekwondo, has physical strength, right? Could be a hero in that respect. There's the biblical hero who's known as Shimshon Hagibor, Samson the hero, Samson the great. But you can be strong in many other ways as well. You can be strong, perhaps like some of the characters in the Shadowhunters, the series, one of the many fantasy books that you enjoy reading, and I'm sure there are heroes and perhaps anti-heroes in there as well. One can be known as a Gibor by displaying strength of character. The name Gabriel is also a name that you share with one of the 4 archangels, whose names are invoked by many people, myself included, when they go to bed at night and say the Shema. We mention Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. So you were given the name Gabriel in English in memory of your maternal great-great-grandmother, Mimi's grandmother, Gisela Keller. Both Gisela Keller and Heinrich Chaim Gladstein were from the country that used to be known as Czechoslovakia, now Slovakia, and they both perished during the Holocaust. As you may know, Gisela and Heinrich's granddaughter, your grandmother, Mimi Bergenfeld, was born in Prešov, Czechoslovakia, and is a survivor of Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. Your grandmother arrived in the United States on October 19, 1949. She had just turned 13, the same age you are now, David. And in honor of your grandmother, and in memory of your great-great-grandparents who perished during the Shoah, I want to say a few words about the Torah scroll from which you read so beautifully today. Back, I think in the 60s, your grandparents, Rudy and Mimi, heard about a collection of Holocaust Torah scrolls that were being stored at the Westminster Synagogue in London. And these scrolls were rescued from Jewish communities that had been destroyed during the Holocaust. In around 1965, your grandparents wrote a letter to the Westminster Trust requesting that one of these scrolls be entrusted to Temple Shalom of Aberdeen, the synagogue around the corner where they were founding members. Your mom, Elisa, read from this very Torah scroll, as did her 2 older brothers, your Uncle Larry and Uncle Bruce. They read from this Torah scroll at their B'nai Mitzvah services as well. And then a couple of decades later, your parents, Mike and Elisa, read from this very scroll at their Ufraf on the Shabbat before getting married. How incredibly meaningful, David, that you had the opportunity to chant from this very scroll today on the occasion in which you are celebrating becoming a bar mitzvah. The fact that you were named after relatives who perished during the Shoah and that you are the grandchild of a Holocaust survivor makes it so meaningful that you read from this scroll that is also a survivor. The points I made earlier in my Devar Torah about Parshat Vayikra is especially pertinent and relevant to you, David, and to the fact that you read from this Torah scroll. This Parsha, Parshat Vayikra, and the entire book of Vayikra includes details about korbanot. Without sacrifice, without concrete, tangible actions to go along with the warm, fuzzy feelings about Judaism that we may have, there is no way that Jewish traditions and values can be transmitted midor ledor, from generation to generation. So David, no pressure here, but you are a link in the chain that connects the generations in your family. And I'm confident that you will do an amazing job of continuing to live a Jewish life and one day be able to transmit those traditions and values to the next generation. I am confident that you will live a life imbued with the traditions and values that are so cherished to your family, to your community, now that you are a full-fledged, proud member of the Jewish community. David, I pray that this Etz Chaim Chumash serves as a reminder and a source of inspiration to you as you continue your Jewish journey. Mazal Tov, and may you go from strength to strength. And now a few words from Mora Ann, Principal Education Director of the Temple Beth Ahm Religious School.
Well, David Yashikoach, I know it's been a while. I know you expected this to be like 7-8 months ago, but we finally made it here. David, I want to wish you mazel tov on becoming bar mitzvah today. I'm very proud of you and all the hard work you put into studying for your bar mitzvah with, I want to say, Josh Feldstein. I also want to wish mazel tov to your mama Lisa, your dad Michael, your grandparents, and all your relatives and friends who are here to help you celebrate, whether in person or virtually, this very special day in your life. I'm very glad we're able to finally be here together. I know it hasn't been easy for you or your family to postpone this important event in your life due to COVID-19, but you took this very well and continued to study over the summer and fall. It was great seeing you over the holidays at shul under the tent. You have such a melodious voice, and hearing you lead Ashrei during the holiday services and yesterday was just beautiful. I always loved when you volunteered to lead prayer during our Sunday morning services. I hope you continue to lead us in prayer here at Temple Beth Ahm in the future when we're back to normal and we could all come up here and start leading. David, I have known you for the past 6 years, and through watching you here at school, I found you to be a very studious student. You took all you learned very seriously. You are an exemplary student. Morachana, Morabi, Moranuri, and Morashari all enjoyed you being in their class. I know you enjoyed learning about Jewish history and Jewish heritage. You're an avid reader, as we mentioned before, and with all the books you collected to give to the Bridge for Books was wonderful. And I know a lot of people from here donated, so that was great what you did. And this led to adding a lot of conversation in class as well. I also know you enjoyed coming early to class to talk to the other boys about video games and trading cards. I learned more than I ever thought I would about the games you played and purchasing some of those cards to give out as gifts. The way you interacted with me, the teachers, and the other students showed me what a caring person you are. You love learning Torah and how you could better yourself through its teachings. I would like to be able to say that your caring way and love for Torah has come from teachings here at Temple Beth Ahm Religious School, and I hope some of it has, but you have been blessed with a wonderful, kind, and caring family. I have known your parents for many years, and I know I've been blessed by their kindness. I met your mom years ago when she was also the principal at Temple Shalom. Now I have worked with her on the Board of Education for the past 5 years. Her knowledge of running a religious school and dedication to our school has been extremely valuable to me and the rest of the board, and I want to say thank you, Lisa. Not to mention being a trustee on the board as well and an advocate for our school, so thank you. Your dad is always helping the school as well by chaperoning and helping with all our programs and fundraisers, And also, I've enjoyed being on the COVID compliance committee with him, and we got to know each other over the summer a lot on those outdoor services. My blessing to you is, may you continue to follow in your parents' footsteps by following the mitzvot, caring for others, and continuing to make Judaism an important part of your life. I know you will always continue to help others because that's just who in your family are. Therefore, to help you towards this goal, I've given you a silver-plated tzedakah box, and it has an inscription that reads, "To David, on this your bar mitzvah day, November 15, 2020, we are wishing you mazel tov." As it says in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, the world stands on three things: Torah, worship, and good deeds. And please use this tzedakah box to continue to do good deeds. Best wishes from Mora Ann and the Temple Beth Ahm Religious School. David, today is a very important day in your life, as was March 28th. So you had two important days in your life. May all the blessings you have received continue to encourage you to be a partner with God and continue helping others. Yasher Koach again on a job well done. I will leave this up here with this stuff. Okay, that's the rabbi now.
So we have a few more gifts. We have a certificate of bar mitzvah that was signed 7 months ago. I did not cross out and add red edits on that, only on the inside of the Eitz Chaim Chumash, but it does have your name. It has the name of the parsha. It has my signature on it, and also the president of our board of trustees, Nathan Goldwasser. And it says, presented by Temple Beth Ahm to David Juros, who, having completed the required studies, was called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah. With the date wrong. That's okay. And we also have from the Board of Trustees, it's the Jewish Book of Why. And this is from USY, United Synagogue Youth. God willing, you'll be able to participate in USY activities. They are currently going on right now, but all virtual, hopefully one day in person. We are very blessed. At our synagogue, the regional president of USY Hagalil is Abby Cohen, and she is a member of our shul. So she sends her best, and the next time you're in shul and she is in shul, I will introduce the two of you. This is from her and from all USY. And we have from the sisterhood a Kiddush cup to go along with your other Kiddush cup. I don't think this is Emmanuel. So use the Emmanuel one. You could use one could be decorated, one could be holidays, one could be Shabbat, one could be Friday night, one could be, you could figure it out. It's never bad to have two Kiddush cups. So Mazal Tov on all of these, and now guess what, David? You get to wrap up the service. You get to come up here and do Aleinu. Then I will do Mourner's Kaddish, which will be preceded by the reading that's on the back of this blue sheet. And that also appeared in the wedding program of Michael and Elisa many years ago. And then conclude with Adon Olam. So David, you are on. Bedecked with your Emmanuel Talit. Go ahead. Page 205.
Aleinu esrabeach ladon hakol, asher kidu avil se rechi, velo asan yukim haratzon, velo shamanu mishpach magama, shalom sam korkenu kahem, vego aleinu kechol hamolam, vanachnu kol.
Okay, who wants to sing the whole thing? Let's do it. Let's go back and do it. Okay, you want to do it, David? Your mom really wants to sing. I can see it. I can hear it. I can feel it. Okay. Shehuno teshamayim v'yosed haaretz
ומשה וקרא בשמיים ממעל, ושפינת תוזו, ושפינת תוזו,
וגופי מרוממים, הוא אלוהינו אינו, אלוהינו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת יום לחשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא אלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, והארץ מתחת. אינו, אינו. 206.
כתוב בתורתו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, וחיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ.
ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. You may be seated. I'm going to read out loud, and you can join me if you like, on the back of the blue sheet. In the midst of our great joy, we wish to honor the memory of those who could not be with us today, but who we know are watching over us in love and spirit. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. As we remember them. If you are mourning or observing a yurt site, or if it is your custom to stand for Mourner's Kaddish, please do and join me in the recitation of Kaddish Yatom, Mourner's Kaddish, on page 207. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, B'alama divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei zechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavarach le'alam u'amei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitzaleh v'yitzalal Shemei dekudsha b'recho le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiram bi'alama v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom v'imramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. And for the grand finale, Adon Olam, page 211.
Adon Olam Asher B'terem kol yitzir nivra li'et nasa v'chefso Hazai melech shemo nikra v'yacharei kichlotako levado yimloch nora
Mazel tov. I just pulled up the live stream. There's a bunch of chats here that I'm just going to read quickly. There's 40 people who are here with us virtually, in addition to those who are here.
Hello,
in person.
virtual people.
Yeah, say hi to them. The camera's right there.
Hello.
Okay, so you heard from Evan Hyman says Mazel Tov, David. Michael Fisher says Mazel Tov. Enjoy your very special day. Meredith Smith says Mazel Tov. Vampirate Queen X? I don't want to ask. Mazel Tov, David. And she said, oh, this is cousin Christy, by the way. Kara SK, Mazel Tov, David. Max Handelman, Mazel Tov. I'm so happy to be able to be part of the Simcha. Ali Rothenberg, Mazel Tov. Mr. Trash, don't know who that is. Maybe you do. Mazel Tov, David. Colleen Klein, Mazel Tov. Bruce Bergenfeld, Uncle Bruce. Mazel Tov, David. Arlene Lazar, Mazel Tov, David, and the rest of the family. Adam Pasillo says, Mazel Tov, David. Adina Shaul, Mazel Tov, David. I'm so proud of you. Michelle Shapiro Abraham, Mazel Tov. Adina Shaul. Auntie Heidi here. Amazing. We miss you so much. Gail Lunan, Mazel Tov. Colleen Klein again. You look amazing, David. LOL. I don't know why that's an LOL. Right. Shira Bergenfeld, Mazel Tov. I love you and I'm so proud of you. Meredith Smith, Mazel Tov. Harriet Thaler, Mazel Tov. Lainey Shapiro, Mazel Tov. Krista Pinter, Mazel Tov. From Jacob and the Pinter family. Evan Hyman. I don't know if I could be reading that out loud. I'll tell you afterwards. Okay. All right. Michelle Shapiro Abraham. Beautiful. Evan Hyman. This one. He says, Yasher Koach Kol HaKavod. Yeah. Colleen Klein. Throwing virtual candy. Evan Hyman. Throws candy at computer screen. Michael Fisher. David, you have made your parents very proud today. Great job. Love Amy and Michael. Fred Eichenbaum. Mazel Tov. Adina Shaul, David, you did an amazing job. We love you. Again, she wrote, Aunt Heidi, not fair that you had the plastic shield to protect you from the hard candies being thrown at you. Michelle Shapiro Abraham, Mazel Tov. Evan Hyman was like on chat the whole time. And he said something else inappropriate. Okay, Judy Feldman, Mazel Tov, love Aunt Judy, Uncle Mark, Hannah, and Jared. And I'll screenshot those for you and send them to you. Okay, Mazel Tov to everybody. And do you have any announcements that you wanted to make, Elisa or Mike, about the food?
give them to me later.
There's no blue ones, so.
Then just give them to my parents. Actually, put them in the little bag. Put them in the basket.
That's what I was gonna do. The thing I hate about that is that since we're the youngest, we have to clean it up.
But whatever. It's still fun and we get to do something.
David, when you have a chance, I want you to try and find the candy that I just found. David, come here. Okay, find the candy that's in this area.
Why the heck did you hide a candy?
I didn't hide it, I just found it.
You found the candy?
I'll give you a hint, it's right there.
It's here.
It's right there.
What the? Thank you. Oh, that sounded violent.
Yes, it was very violent.
Only you can prevent Byfield from burning down.
Oh,
Byfield,
David,
Massachusetts. specifically.
David, just saying.
Yeah.
When COVID thing is over, I do want to go to your house. And I do want to go to your house.